The first note hadn't even finished echoing through Stanford Stadium when something unbelievable happened. 50,000 armies screamed so loudly that Jimin had to stop for a split second and smile. Not because he forgot the choreography. Not because something went wrong. But because even he seemed overwhelmed by what he was hearing. That was the power of the moment. The moment Jimin stepped onto the stage on day one of the BTS World Tour ARIRANG in Stanford, the entire atmosphere changed. The lights were blinding. The bass thundered through the ground. Purple light sticks rippled like an endless ocean. And in the center of it all stood Jimin. Elegant. Radiant. And impossibly magnetic. The crowd didn't just react. They exploded. And from that very first second, everyone in the stadium knew one thing. This was going to be a night no one would ever forget. Because there are performances that impress you. And then there are performances that completely take your breath away. This was the second kind. Hours before the concert even began, the energy outside Stanford Stadium was electric. Fans from all over the world filled the surrounding streets. Some had flown in from Mexico. Others from Brazil, South Korea, Indonesia, and across the United States. Many had waited years for this moment. They wore handmade outfits, held banners, and clutched army bombs with shaking hands. And everywhere you looked, one name appeared again and again. Jimin. Signs reading Jimin, you are our angel. Park Jimin, our forever home. Stanford loves you. The anticipation was almost unbearable. Would he perform a new arrangement? Would he debut a new look? Would he create another unforgettable moment? No one knew. But everyone felt it. Something extraordinary was coming. As sunset painted the California sky in shades of orange and purple, the stadium transformed into a sea of emotion. The lights dimmed. A roar rose from the crowd. The opening VCR flashed across the giant screens. Every heartbeat seemed to synchronize. Then the music began. The stage erupted with light. One by one, the members appeared. The crowd screamed louder with each reveal. But when Jimin stepped into the spotlight, the sound became something else entirely. A wall of pure emotion. Fans screamed. Cried. Covered their mouths in disbelief. Because Jimin looked unreal. His outfit shimmered under the lights. His hair framed his face perfectly. And his expression held that familiar blend of intensity and tenderness that only he can deliver. For a brief moment, it felt as if the entire stadium forgot how to breathe. Then he moved. And chaos began. Jimin's dancing was breathtaking. Every motion was precise. Fluid. Effortless. He seemed to glide rather than step. Each turn sent his hair catching the light. Each expression shifted the emotional tone of the performance. 1 second he was fierce. The next, heartbreakingly soft. And ARMY responded to every single detail. A glance. A smile. A shoulder roll. The screams never stopped. Can you imagine having that kind of power? To move thousands of people with the slightest gesture? That is what makes Jimin so extraordinary. He doesn't simply perform choreography. He tells a story with every movement. And on day one in Stanford, that story was impossible to look away from. As the concert continued, Jimin seemed increasingly energized by the crowd. Each time ARMY shouted his name, his smile widened. At one point, he looked out over the sea of purple lights and laughed softly, almost in disbelief. Then he placed a hand over his heart. The reaction was immediate. Fans burst into tears. Because moments like that feel deeply personal. In a stadium filled with tens of thousands of people, Jimin somehow makes every individual feel seen. That is a rare gift. And Stanford felt it in full force. Then came his solo stage. The moment many fans had been waiting for all night. The lights dimmed. a hush swept through the stadium. And when Jimin appeared alone at center stage, the emotional intensity became almost unbearable. His voice was rich and vulnerable. Every lyric felt intimate. Every movement seemed infused with meaning. He wasn't just singing. He was sharing a part of himself. And the audience responded with total devotion. Some fans cried openly. Others stood motionless, afraid to miss a single second. It was the kind of performance that makes time feel suspended. The kind of moment that lingers long after the music ends. When the final note faded, there was a split second of stunned silence. Then the stadium erupted. The cheers were deafening. Jimin lowered his head and smiled shyly, visibly touched by the reaction. And once again, ARMY screamed even louder. But the night wasn't only about breathtaking performances. It was also filled with playful, unforgettable interactions. During one moment, Jimin teased the crowd with a mischievous grin. He waved, blew a kiss, then gave a tiny wink. The response was immediate chaos. Fans clutched their hearts. Friends grabbed each other. Social media later flooded with comments like, "I actually stopped breathing." And honestly, that may not have been an exaggeration. Because Jimin has a way of combining world-class artistry with genuine warmth. He can leave you speechless with his talent and then melt your heart with one shy smile.
That emotional contrast is what makes him so captivating. As the concert moved toward its final stages, the atmosphere became increasingly emotional. The members spoke about how grateful they were to be in Stanford. Jimin listened quietly, his eyes scanning the crowd. When it was his turn to speak, the cheers were overwhelming. He thanked ARMY for their love, for their energy, for always being there. His words were simple, but his sincerity made them unforgettable. You could hear the emotion in his voice. You could see it in his expression. And all around the stadium, fans were crying. Because this connection between Jimin and ARMY is more than admiration. It is mutual trust, mutual comfort, mutual love. And nowhere was that more evident than in that moment. Then came one final performance. The members returned to the stage with renewed energy. Jimin danced with visible joy, feeding off the crowd's enthusiasm. He laughed, ran across the stage, reached out toward the fans. And every time he appeared on the giant screen, the stadium exploded once again. As the final song ended, confetti filled the air. Purple lights shimmered through the night. Jimin stood at the edge of the stage, taking in the scene. He looked around slowly, as if trying to memorize every face, every voice, every expression of love. Then he bowed deeply, and Stanford roared, not because they wanted more, but because they wanted him to know how much he meant to them. Jimin raised his head. His smile was soft and emotional. For a moment, he looked almost overwhelmed. Then he waved, placed his hand over his heart, and whispered what many fans believe was a silent thank you. It was a small gesture, but it carried enormous meaning, because that is who Jimin is. No matter how massive the stage, no matter how intense the spotlight, he never forgets the people who made it all possible. After the concert, social media exploded. Clips of Jimin's performance flooded every platform. Fans wrote, "He was unreal. I screamed and cried the entire night." Jimin owned Stanford. This is why he is so loved. And perhaps the most repeated comment of all, "No one does it like Jimin." It's hard to argue with that, because what happened on day one of the BTS World Tour ARIRANG in Stanford was more than a successful performance. It was an emotional experience, a reminder of Jimin's extraordinary ability to transform music into something deeply personal, to turn a stadium into a shared heartbeat, to make thousands of people feel seen, comforted, and inspired. That is his true gift. And perhaps that is why fans around the world love him so fiercely. Not just because he is talented, not just because he is beautiful, but because he performs with his whole heart. And when someone gives that much of themselves, people feel it. Long after the lights go out, long after the confetti settles, long after the final note fades, the memory remains. The sound of 50,000 voices screaming, the sight of Jimin smiling under the lights, the feeling of being part of something unforgettable. So let me ask you, what was the exact moment that made you scream the loudest? The first reveal? His solo stage? That shy smile? Or the final bow? Tell me in the comments. And if this performance reminded you why Jimin holds such a special place in your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because some performers entertain us, some amaze us, and a rare few make us feel emotions we can barely put into words. Jimin is one of those rare few. And on day one in Stanford, he reminded the world exactly why ARMY can never stop screaming for him.